Law number 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Judgment. Be absolutely wary of friends. They will betray you more quickly, for they are easily aroused to envy. They also become spoiled and tyrannical, but hire a former enemy and he will be more loyal than a friend because he has more to prove. In fact, you have more to fear from friends than from enemies. Transgression of the law. In the mid-9th century AD, Michael III ascended the Byzantine throne. His mother, Empress Theodora, had been exiled to a nunnery, and her lover, Theoctistus, was murdered. The mastermind behind this conspiracy was Michael's uncle, Bardas, a man known for his intelligence and ambition. Now, Michael found himself a young, inexperienced ruler surrounded by conspirators, murderers, and profligates. At this perilous moment, he needed someone he could trust, and he turned to his closest friend, Basileus. Though Basileus had no experience in governance, he was merely the head of the royal stables, but he had proven his loyalty time and again to Michael. The two had first met years earlier when Michael visited the stables and a wild horse broke loose. Basileus, a humble groom for Macedonian peasant stock, saved Michael's life that time. Impressed by Basileus' courage and strength, Michael elevated him to the head of the stables. Showering him with gifts and honors, Michael sent Basileus even to the best school in Byzantium, where the rough peasant transformed into a refined courtier. Now, as emperor, Michael needed a trusted advisor, and despite the advice of those who suggested the more qualified Bardas, his uncle, Michael still chose Basileus. He believed Basileus, whom he loved like a brother, would be trained for the role. Basileus also adapted very quickly, soon offering his counsel on matters of state. However, his greed also began to grow. He was never satisfied with his wealth, and the grandeur of court life only fueled his desire for more. Michael doubled and then even tripled his salary, ennobled him, and even married him off to his mistress. Later, Bardas, Michael's uncle, who was now the head of the army, became a target of Basileus' schemes. Basileus convinced Michael that Bardas was dangerously ambitious, capable of overthrowing the emperor, just as he had conspired to place him on the throne by killing his mother, and therefore, eventually, Michael agreed to have Bardas murdered. During a grand horse race, Basileus struck, stabbing Bardas to death in the crowd. Basileus, now in control of the army, consolidated his power. A few years later, when Michael, facing financial difficulties, asked Basileus to repay some of the borrowed money, Basileus arrogantly refused. Michael, at that moment, realized that the former stable boy had amassed more power, more wealth, and even more influence than the emperor himself. Not long after, following a night of heavy drinking, Michael awoke to find himself surrounded by soldiers. As Basileus looked on, they murdered the emperor. Basileus, now claiming the throne, rode through the streets of Byzantium, brandishing the head of his former friend and benefactor at the end of a long pike. To have a good enemy, choose a friend he knows where to strike. Interpretation. Michael III placed his future in the hands of Basileus, believing that the deep gratitude Basileus must feel would ensure his loyalty. After all, Basileus owed the emperor everything: his wealth, his education, and power. Michael gave him anything he desired, thinking it would strengthen their bond. But on the day Michael saw that brazen smile on Basileus' face, he realized the fatal error he had made. He had created a monster. Basileus, having tasted power, now wanted more and more. Showered with everything he had asked for, he grew resentful of the favors he had received and began to believe his rise was due to his own abilities. Michael, blinded by friendship and love, failed to see the danger until it was too late. In his moment of realization, he could have saved himself, but he clung to the belief that a friend could never betray him until his head was raised on a pike. Lord, protect me from my friends. I can take care of my enemies. Observance of the law. Following the fall of the Han dynasty, China saw a recurring cycle of violent coups where army generals would murder weak emperors and claim the dragon throne. These new rulers will kill off rivals to secure their reign, but the pattern would repeat. Within a few years, the emperor or his heirs would be overthrown by new generals. Being the emperor of China was ironically the most precarious position, surrounded by enemies and threats. In 959 AD, however, General Chao Kuang-in ascended as Emperor Song, fully aware of this dangerous pattern. To break it, Song organized a banquet, inviting the top commanders of his army. After much wine, he dismissed everyone except the generals, who now feared that he would have them killed. Instead, Song candidly spoke to them, acknowledging their power and the ever-present threat they posed, not necessarily by intent but by the ambition of their subordinates. He then offered them a peaceful alternative: retirement with wealth, estates, and the comforts of a luxurious life. The generals, surprised and relieved, accepted his offer and resigned the next day and retreated from power. Song's strategy successfully neutralized potential rivals. Years later, in 971 AD, after the rebellious King Liu of the southern Han surrendered, Song extended a hand of friendship. When Liu feared that Song's offer of wine was poisoned, the emperor drank from the cup himself, proving his goodwill. This act transformed Liu into one of Song's most loyal supporters. In another instance, after defeating Qian Shu, the ruler of a rival kingdom, Song's ministers advised him to imprison the defeated king, citing evidence of an ongoing conspiracy. Instead, Song honored Qian Shu and gave him a package to open on his way home. Inside, Qian Shu found the very documents that exposed his betrayal. Song's act of sparing him, despite knowing the conspiracy, won Qian Shu's heart and loyalty as well. Interpretation. A Chinese proverb compares friends to the jaws and teeth of a dangerous animal. If you are not careful, you will find them chewing you up. Emperor Song recognized this threat upon taking the throne, understanding that his so-called friends in the military and the government could betray him anytime. Instead of relying on them, he distanced himself by offering lavish estates to his generals, neutralizing their power without provoking revenge. By converting enemies into loyal subjects, Song fostered gratitude rather than entitlement. Those spared punishment became his most trusted allies, demonstrating that it's often wiser to rely on those shown mercy than on friends who may betray you anytime. Keys to power. It's natural to rely on friends in difficult times. They soften the world's harshness, and you trust them. But you may not know your friends as well as you think. They often hide their true selves, agreeing with you to avoid conflict, even if they don't mean it. When you hire a friend, their hidden qualities emerge, and your act of kindness can upset the balance. People want to feel they earn their success, and receiving favors can feel oppressive. Slowly, resentment builds, and the friendship weakens. Ingratitude is an ancient problem. If you expect nothing from a friend, you will be pleasantly surprised if they are grateful. But hiring friends also limits your power. A friend may not be the best person for the job, and competence is more important than any friendly feelings. Work requires distance. Keep friends for friendship and work with those who are skilled. Enemies, on the other hand, are an untapped resource. In 1807, Talleyrand, Napoleon's foreign minister, turned to his hated enemy, Joseph Fouché, to conspire against the emperor. Their shared hatred fostered reconciliation, and Fouché worked to prove himself. Their relationship was based on mutual self-interest, and though their plan failed, the alliance still created opposition to Napoleon. Authority. Know how to use enemies for your own profit. You must learn to grab a sword not by its blade, which would cut you, but by the handle, which allows you to defend yourself. The wise man profits more from his enemies than a fool from his friends. Reversal. While it's typically wise to keep work and friendship separate, there are instances where a friend can be more beneficial than an enemy. A powerful individual often has some unsavory tasks that need to be handled, and it's usually better for someone else to do them for the sake of appearances. Friends are often more willing to take such risks due to their affection for you. Additionally, if your plans fail, a friend can serve as a convenient scapegoat. This fall of the favorite strategy was frequently employed by rulers who allowed a trusted ally to take the blame for a misstep, knowing the public would find it hard to believe a leader would sacrifice a friend for personal gain. However, using a friend in this way will cost you their loyalty permanently, so it's wiser to select someone close but not too close for this role. Lastly, the challenge with working alongside friends is that it blurs the necessary boundaries for effective collaboration. If both parties are aware of the inherent risks, a friend can be utilized effectively. However, one must always remain vigilant for signs of emotional turmoil such as jealousy or ingratitude. In the world of power, nothing is secure, and even the closest friends can anytime become formidable enemies.